I guess I'm first up. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining. My name is Ashley Dabb. I am currently with the Pennsylvania Convention Center, but prior to working at the Convention Center, I've been generally in the sports marketing arena. So I was with the National Lacrosse League as the Chief Marketing Officer for three years, and then prior to that, I spent almost a decade with the Philadelphia Union, the Major League Soccer team, handling everything from digital communications to event operations, special events, which all has sort of translated now into my role at the Convention Center, where I'm overseeing the strategic communications, specifically during this time of COVID and what will be to come from COVID. What are we doing across, social media, and what do events look like here in the future?
Ryan Wolfe, I'm in charge of sports tourism here in the state of Delaware. I'm the first full-time staff member that the Delaware Tourism Office has had. So excited to kind of grow a strong sport tourism program here. In my former life, I was in college athletics for a number of years in the marketing and game presentation areas at a number of schools across the country. So my job is to essentially recruit sporting events, small, medium, and large, to the state of Delaware to increase the economic impact.
My name is Andy Carl. I'm the co-founder and director of business development for Team Solutions. In my past life, I've worked in collegiate athletics at Temple and Villanova, as well as the U.S. Olympic Committee in Colorado Springs and Valley Forge Tourism Convention Board and the Sports Commission in Montgomery County. I currently assist large event organizers with providing housing solutions to their participants for their events, and assisting with finding them venues and destinations to match with their events.
My name is Terry Hasseltine. I am the Executive Director of the Maryland Sports Commission, President of the Sport and Entertainment Corporation of Maryland, and the Vice President of the Maryland Stadium Authority. I have been in this current role for about 11 and a half years. Prior to that, I led the Commonwealth of Kentucky's Sports Authority, where we created an initiative called Team Kentucky, which is kind of the standard bearer to today's state initiatives across the country in sport tourism. And prior to that, I spent probably 12 years on the collegiate athletic side, both NCAA, NAIA, and several institutions.
We're just going to introduce the student moderators really quick. My name's Tom Van Horn. I'm a senior at Neumann University.
My name is Cory Ruggiero. I'm also a student, senior at Neumann University.
I'm Dennis Foreman, also senior at Neumann University.
I'm Colin Blake, also senior at Neumann University. First off, I want to thank all our four panelists for joining us, as well as all the attendees. So I guess the first topic that we'll talk about is sport tourism. That's all what we're all in. So what is the importance of sport tourism to the economy, local economy, city, state, creating businesses and jobs? Just if anyone wants to jump in first.
I'll take a stab at that. I think when it comes to the importance of sport tourism to the state and local economy, it's very significant. You talk about heads and beds, food and belly, gas and cars, credit card and cash and counters and butts and seats. It's the immeasurable part of today's economy. And when you talk about bringing people in from all over the region and all over the country to drive into a market or fly into a market, you're talking about tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of tax revenues being generated in a state, in a county, in a city. In the state of Maryland, for example, sport tourism in the youth side only generates about $200 million in direct spending each year on our economy. That's just direct spending. If you put that into some type of economic impact calculator, we're drawing probably about $1.2 to $1.3 billion just through sport tourism and youth sports across the state of Maryland. So the trickle-down effect of the taxes that are collected and the visitation and the experience that we provide to our user groups is critical mass. And we're going to be right on that. We're going to be the new front line when we get beyond this pandemic and the time comes and we have to restart and re-jump our economy. I serve on the governor's task force for tourism recovery for the state of Maryland. And, he realizes, as well as the tourism industry realizes, how vital sports are to getting back to a new norm. And what that new norm looks like in reality, none of us know, but we know sports is going to play a huge part of that fabric. So we need to be equipped and ready to rock and roll when the time comes.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. You got it, Ashley. You're good.
Sorry. I would say for us at the convention center, while we're not hosting necessarily live sporting events, we have hosted the lacrosse convention, MLS draft. So it is sort of woven into the fabric of the center, hosting sporting sort of adjacent events. And I think for us, really, it's, you know, supporting the local economy as an economic driver, as Terry just mentioned, but also the full-time employment. You know, we have over 74,000 people in the hospitality industry within Philadelphia. So keeping those folks employed is certainly also very important. So getting these events restarted is something that we're obviously focusing on when the time is appropriate. But I think also the day-to-day, like I think for the convention center, you know, we are in the heart of the city, but I think few maybe realize how much actually goes in and out of the building, whether it's a sporting type event, a concert, a convention, a flower show, auto show. But it's also about the folks who are there, you know, working daily to sort of keep the operation running. And right now, those people are just sort of sitting and waiting.
Yeah, to piggyback off of what Ashley said, I deal on a daily basis with hotels across the country, and we're seeing a lot of hotel sales folk and custodians and front office folks furloughed. So our day-to-day interactions with folks that we know and trust is kind of at a pause right now. And so I don't think I had an understanding or could anticipate how much of an impact it had on the microcosm of the hotel industry and the full-time employment, like Ashley said.
Here in Delaware, I think the big thing for us is trying to obviously rebook and either punt it to later 2020. And you know, I've only been doing this for about 8 months, but it's been a you know, throw me in the deep end kind of deal with the last few months to deal with, you know, all the craziness. But it's been cool to see everyone understand the importance of sport tourism, and some that didn't really understand the impact. You know, and I think we're geographically positioned well. You know, so is Maryland to, you know, we're a gas tank from about 35 million folks. So those national event owners, they know that obviously, and they know, you know, that we can pull from a lot of different states that are pretty close. So, you know, when this thing kind of, you know, reopens, you know, we know not many people are going to hop on a plane. They're going to hop in their car and go do whatever they want to do. So, you know, there's a few of us states that are pretty well positioned for that. So just trying to, you know, get calendars, you know, together and make sure that people understand that, hey, you know, 2020, you know, we still got a lot of months left, and we got a lot of weekends open to fill them with sporting events. So just making sure everyone's on the same page, and a lot of communication to make sure that, you know, we can be that home for those canceled events.
So we have a first question in the Q&A. Connor Eichler, I apologize if I pronounced that wrong. He asked, how much do you think tourism and sports will change once the pandemic is over?
All right, since I've ended the last one, I'll start this one. I think everyone kind of understands that no one has any clue, but we need to get ready for all kinds of, you know, changes, right? So if you have an event that's 200 teams, you know, for the past 5 years, it's probably not going to look like that in September or October. So how do you plan for whether it looks like 100 teams or 50 teams or anything in between? And that takes a lot of communication, you know, from concessions to facilities to hotels to EMTs to all kinds of different people to just manage those kind of expectations and knowing that we'll get back to that someday. But, you know, right away, it's probably not going to look like what it used to. But sports tourism, you know, usually rebounds fairly quickly and easily. And we know that. So just trying to get a lot of plans in place for all the different scenarios to make sure that, you know, when things open, we can hit go and we're ready.
I think there's going to be a paradigm shift on the importance from venues and hotels and the event itself. And I think now something of just as much importance is going to be cleanliness and safety. Because we're in an industry of mass gatherings and in a lot of sense, or a lot of times it's youth sports. People are going to be particularly careful and ask a lot of questions on the procedures and that are in place, both at the hotels, at the venues, going forward to ensure the safety and health of everyone. Not to say that wasn't of great importance prior to this, but I think it's going to be a major talking point for the foreseeable future.
All right, we have a lot of questions coming in right now, so we'll get them as soon as we can. But the next question is from Evan Zelensky, specifically for Terrance. He asked, what is your take on the state of scheduled tournaments and showcases and the unknown? Do you think that the more events will get canceled or made up at the later date?
That's an awesome question. The challenging part that we're facing across the sport tourism industry is that events might be getting canceled as they currently stand. However, we do have summer and fall calendar schedules that are already in the books. And because they're on the books, is there availability in the market to sustain a double booking, or even, does it make sense to, replace something that is being canceled with something that's already on the books if the size and the scope is larger and can mean more to the economy? These are challenges that venues across the country and event owners across the country are going to have to make based on their economic model, based on how they fuel, their business. It's going to be challenging for us on the local side to determine what is a priority and not a priority, especially when you're talking with a rights holder subset that has to get their constituents back playing in their games. They're measured by, the number of tournaments and the participants that they have. So it's going to be a unique challenge for us to tackle, just pure cancellation and rebooking when, Ashley can probably talk to this more, when you got a convention center that's already got an event in place. She can't obviously transpose that event and put it somewhere else in order to take on something that was canceled back in the fall. So we're all kind of in a little bit of an unnorm, but we've all dealt with situations like this in the past where, something that's had to cancel, whether it's weather related or whether it is, building or construction related, and have to try to reconfigure what the new schedule looks like. And we've had to double, triple book. And that's not necessarily the easiest thing to do because space availability, there's natural grass, wear and tear, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of things that we just don't know that we're going to have to figure out as this continues on. And I think it was Ryan and Andy and both actually all said, it's going to take communication. It's going to take an articulation of what can and can't be done, and also try to figure out win-win situations that make everybody, get a chance to participate and or put their activity on. And like I said, the new norm, no one knows the definition of the new norm, but we're going to try to define it at some time down the road.
Yeah, I would just say that's a great point, where we would possibly have double bookings. For instance, this past year we had the Flower Show and Pack Expo, and they overlap. So that's very common and routine to, expand and extend the building to maximum capacity for especially some of these citywide shows or the public gate shows. But now with potentially social distancing guidelines, like even though we have the space and the availability, we possibly can't even do that. So it's another layer of complexity that's been added to the calendar of trying to schedule these events. And, we at the convention center have sort of the larger shows, building wide, city-wides, that take precedence, but then we also have local customers, corporate meetings, things like that. So, the priority list is becoming even harder to manage as well. So a lot more challenges. And unfortunately, if we were to be able to flip a switch and everything would go back to sort of the old way, we would double and triple book and try to turn the building over as quickly as possible. But I think, again, given the new sort of social distancing, cleanliness guidelines, and a lot of these things we were doing in just a different way, from routine cleaning and things like that. But it's going to limit sort of your ability to be profitable. I know some of the sports leagues are talking about starting back up with professional sports leagues are starting back up without fans in the venues. And so obviously that significantly limits their revenue as well. So again, a lot of things up in the air at the moment.
We have another question from Jim Britt. Said, In your planning discussions now, what legal and regulatory challenges like risk management, government policies, and oversight are you anticipating?
I think one of the things that we've learned through this entire process is not to anticipate anything. Be as proactive as possible in setting up yourself in a situation for understanding, and you hope to use your intuition to be able to, I don't even want to say the word predict, because every time I predict something, I get another email that says that an event is moved or changed. I don't like being reactive, but I think we're in a new world. You really don't know what to anticipate. So in terms of regulatory policy, I know that we're in the process of when we deal with hotels, that we start asking more pointed questions about what their policies and procedures are so that we can articulate that to our participants that are staying at those hotels. And we certainly, from our risk mitigation standpoint, want to put folks in hotels that adhere to CDC guidelines and a lot of the national and international health standards that are being put in place and you know, in moving forward as they adapt. We want to adhere to the best policies possible.
I think something else you'll see coming down that path and adding on to what Andy and Ashley said is, you know, a lot of events this go around dealing with a pandemic for the first time, you know, had clauses that didn't deal with pandemics. So I think we're going to see on the insurance side of things some adjustments to what cancellation policies, especially now that we're talking about something that is talked about being seasonal, talking about, you know, second wave. People are going to have to take caution and make sure that there's additional coverages within plans and programs that are out there now. I know a lot of our small business event owners are dealing with the fact that a pandemic was actually spelled out in their, you know, in their insurance policy that was not covered. But a lot of insurance companies are trying to play, you know, the big role in trying to meet them somewhere in the middle, because no one ever anticipates a long shutdown or a long period of time where you cannot do anything besides, you know, try to plan, try to put your ducks in a row, and hopefully when someone gives you that green light that you can run. But right now, none of us know when we're going to be able to run again. None of us know where, you know, the next opportunity is going to present itself. So we're all sitting in this wait and see mode, but starting to explore these vehicles of what needs to be added to, what needs to be adjusted, what needs to be changed. And then by the time we figure that out, we'll be hit with, you know, some other, you know, new situation. So it's all relative and it's all fluid at this current time.
Our next question is from Dwayne Agard. Apologies for if I've said that wrong. Are there new industries, business opportunities that are being formed that will assist sport facilities and sport organization prepared for health and safety concerns? Do you see yourself subcontracting those needs or doing them in-house?
I think one thing Andy talked about, you know, being proactive versus reactive is you don't know what the rules are going to be when this is done. You don't know what laws are going to be in place, whether it's local or federal. But I mean, even, you know, in this past month or 5 weeks, whatever it's been, you know, most of our facilities, since they're, you know, they're not hosting anything right now, they have been trying to put together, you know, what they would think of plans could be for cleanliness and risk and spacing and, you know, whether it's concessions or parking or ticketing, you know, how do we reimagine what that experience looks like for everybody? You know, they're not breaking down walls yet, but just trying to think outside the box, because I think that's the world we're going to live in, is something that we've never really had to deal with before. So, you know, in terms of subcontracting, you know, it just depends on, you know, what the lay of the law looks like. But most of our facilities are being proactive and thinking, and then just being able to react and pivot, you know, wherever the laws go. But yeah, most guys are thinking ahead and thinking about, you know, what other kinds of crazy things we're going to have to deal with down the road.
I would just add that, you know, for us in the convention space, we do have a volleyball tournament coming up, you know, even discussing not just around that event, but events in general, conventions and things where spectators are there, looking at a hybrid of a live and digital model. So similar to this Zoom conference, like can we hold meetings where, I don't know, I'm making this up, but the max capacity is 100 people, but they open it up digitally to, 10,000 people who are viewing the conference from their home or the tournament from their home. But also how does that impact the guest experience? As a fan of a sport, say it was volleyball, obviously watching at home versus being there live is a different experience. So we're also trying to figure out ways, if we have to deliver any of these sort of event pieces digitally, how we could sort of enhance the experience. And like Ryan said, looking at reimagining the experience to fit whatever this new normal box is.
Our next
All
question.
right.
Do something to add to that?
Go ahead, Dennis.
Our next question is from Jeremy Page from California University of PA. Being that physical sports is currently on a halt, do you think you will look to focus more on remote sports like esports, be it hosting athletes playing popular games or etc.?
I can speak to that. Esports is not immune to this. For the larger events that have economic impact and folks in attendance, it kind of runs similar to every other live sport that we're looking at. I just had an event that was canceled, or excuse me, that's a bad word to use in our industry, postponed to September. That was scheduled in June. Was an e-gaming event. And so really e-gaming isn't immune to it, in the sense that if for the ones that have economic impact and that have participants, and it's not just streaming on Twitch already, we're seeing the same cancellations, postponements, and rescheduling.
I think the unique part about this is we're all trying to find a way to keep sports relevant in the mindset of our consumers, the general public and the like. And obviously esports and virtual sports right now are giving that platform. But going back to what Andy said, they're not immune to what's going on in the market. However, it is kind of showcasing a little bit that, how important revenue generation in the marketplace is for sporting events and the impact that it has on a local community. In esports, being able to be played virtually, like we're having this meeting right now. Everybody's in a different location. Everybody's in their own place right now. So no spend is coming into the local market. So, Neumann University, as the host of this, is not reaping any, new revenues coming onto campus because we're all virtual. And when you have a virtual, reality, where does the money and where does the dollars that get transacted in the community come from? Well, in this case, it would be branding and or some type of digital platform. It's more of a marketing strategy, and a digitalization of branding, is where you can get a big bang for your buck out of esports and other virtual opportunities. So it's not about the physical of the economy. It's about keeping brand awareness and the attributes of sports in the mindset. It's also a social well-being, keeping people happy and keeping people engaged in the concept of sport.
So our next question is from Lyle Pfingst. And again, I apologize for the mispronunciation if so. He said, with smaller scale leagues like minor league baseball and summer collegiate baseball, for example, the Wilmington Blue Rocks, how will they cope with all this happening, since they rely on ticket revenue, merchandising sales, and concession sales? And how would that affect their local economy?
Well, since the Blue Rocks are mentioned, I'll take a stab at it. So I actually talked to the GM right when all this kind of started. And obviously, Major League Baseball, is kind of taking the lead on a lot of this stuff since their season, is in play right now. So he kind of talked, they're in communications with their parent organization, and, it's minor league baseball is not going to go off and just kind of do their own thing. So it's a really collaborative effort between not only them, their parent organization, but the other minor league teams within that system. And in terms of local economy, they've been out in the community a little bit to kind of help out with local efforts. Again, like Terry said, with that branding piece, obviously they can't come to games, but they want to keep the Blue Rocks brand on top of people's minds. So they've been running some social contests and, like I said, helping out with the COVID relief efforts around here. So, I think, they'll take their lead from their parent organization and Major League Baseball. And then, whatever kind of standard is put in place. I know overseas they're already starting to play a little bit with no fans in the stands. So, maybe that seems to be the most popular idea right now. But we'll see, whether they go and play in Arizona or Florida or somewhere else remote. Who knows? But yeah, they're trying as best they can to stay relevant around here, so that when things are back to quote unquote normal, we can get back to playing baseball again and enjoying hot dogs in the stands.
Yeah, I think just in general, there's an opportunity to still sell. It's not like, for instance, like ticket sales, once the season ends, they just close up shop and then they start up a month before the season. I think there's an opportunity there's a lot of opportunities to develop relationships with current clients, future clients, past clients, whether that's a family of four looking for the 4 hot dogs, 4 tickets, 4 sodas at a night at the ballpark, or, a larger client in my case. So I think that's how you survive and you move forward. You don't get complacent, and you kind of take it as, just any other day. And while that's difficult, it does provide some opportunities. And then, also it also allows you the opportunity to gain trust of your clients. So you have the opportunity now to, the folks that you've dealt with in the past to just prove your worth and prove that, I think folks will appreciate more a night at the Wilmington Blue Rocks a lot more than they maybe would have a year ago. And so I think that is an opportunity to be able to sell and say, once, I kind of feel like we're caged animals. Once we're let out of the cage a little bit, this is where you want to spend what discretionary and disposable income that you have left after whatever economic impact you've felt over the last several months.
With a major tournament transitioning to Maryland, the CIAA in 2021, do you think the COVID-19 effects could trickle to impacting that major event? If so, how? So just that event.
Well, I think, the impact of this is going to have an effect on everything. Right now, part of the goal is to raise money to support the tournaments, both the scholarship, levels, and also, just the various events that go in and around it. We might have to look at what does a scaled back CIAA tournament look like in 2021, so that we can at least deliver the opportunity and create the platforms for future years to evolve and grow that tournament substantially. But right now we have our hat on as though we're moving forward as things are going to get back to a level of normal. However, we do know that we have to have a plan B, which is, what does something look like if it's scaled back in its totality? Meaning, that it's a basketball tournament that has a lot of social, events that go along with it. And what are some of those things that you might have to scale back? What are some of those things you might have to postpone in year one, but guarantee a larger deliverable in year two? We're going to work closely with the CIAA and the commissioner and her staff to ensure that the student athlete still has a world-class experience in a world-class destination. And when it comes to totality, we will ensure that the CIAA has a positive experience. But what that experience looks like today, we're still trying to define, because we don't know when the doors are going to open, and we don't know where those private sector philanthropic dollars might exist. And now with the public sector having to take such a large role on dealing with the pandemic, where do some of those public dollars now lie, and will they be committable to an event as early as February of 2021? All these things are going to play out over the next several months, and hopefully we deliver a world-class event for the CIAA, and we have every intention of doing so.
Our next question is from Trey Johnson. Again, sorry if I pronounced that wrong. His question is, how are you accounting for an instance where fans may be hesitant to attend events with large crowd?
I think one of the things that we're doing is creating protocols of communication. How are we going to communicate that our ballparks are open, our stadiums are open, our convention centers are open? What measures are we taking as organizations to ensure that the safety of our visitors, our people who are going to experience our buildings, are going to have a quality experience and a safe experience? And the more we communicate, the more we articulate, and the more we use visual stimulus to show how we're enacting some of those policies, I think will help people get a little bit more comfortable with the fact that we're going to be bringing people into large buildings. But I think it's going to take communication, and it's going to take an articulation of that message and a visual stimulus to show people all the things that are being procedurally put into place. But right now, I mean, there are some things that buildings do naturally to try to help with some of these issues like cleaning and keeping up on the sanitary needs of a building and a venue. But I think at the end of the day, there's going to be new procedures in place. How we explain those procedures, how we implement those procedures are going to be critical mass, and making sure that we give that mom and dad and that spectator and everybody a good place to come and have a quality experience. And we might have to limit our numbers. I mean, we have a 71,000 seat football stadium, a 42,000 seat baseball stadium here in Baltimore. And one of the things we might have to look at, what does a 1/3 ballpark look like? What does a quarter ballpark look like? And as we start to be able to rev towards being at full capacity, then making sure we can instill those policies and procedures of social distancing, quality cleansing of the buildings, and turning the building over in a very effective and efficient manner so that it can be back in and be operable. I mean, Ashley, I'm sure, is dealing with that more on a day-to-day basis with the convention center, that it might have a new normal of what, a full building looks like.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. I was literally probably going to say almost the same thing about communication. I think everyone is, I would argue at this point, aware that there'll be new policies and procedures as far as attending, larger scale gatherings. And so making sure that people are aware of that, because also we're in the hospitality business and we want people to come out, and when they come out, they have a good time. So making sure that they're aware that if we no longer allow any bags in the building, that they're aware of that across as many channels as we have, their meeting planners. I think that's, what we're looking at is, aside from doing the cleaning, which we obviously do for every event, but maybe ramping that up or implementing new technology to do that, is the touch points with the customer. So is there a way that instead of scanning tickets, is there some sort of card reader? Is there a way to cut down on contact? Is one of the things that I think a lot of the questions we're focused on is looking at. So, even concessions, having things pre-bagged as opposed to having maybe a buffet style at some of the meetings or conventions. So I think a lot of it, again, is looking at how the customer journey from start to finish, and how can we cut down on the contacts that occur, in addition to, as Terry said, communicating, over communicating, and re-communicating some of that same messaging, so that when they do come back to all of our venues, that they're aware of the policy and we're not turning them away if we've changed, a policy where, like I said, let's say we no longer want to have bags because we don't want to have security have to search a bag, and that creates another point of contact. So can't communicate, enough. And luckily with digital and social media, we're really able to kind of get out in front of it when we're able to sort of move forward with these new policies.
Yeah, so we'll kind of shift over to another question. Kind of the biggest challenges before COVID-19 that you guys have faced in terms of bringing events, bringing teams, and bringing facilities to your general areas, in terms of the importance of communication and kind of the process that goes into all that, kind of before this COVID started.
From my perspective, in dealing with hotels and the clients, it's the type of hotel rooms, the availability, the rates, the client requests were kind of the biggest talking points in my daily dealings. I don't know if you want me to kind of talk about what the new norm is, or are we going to get to that in a little bit, but those are kind of what I've dealt with on a pre-COVID-19 day-to-day basis.
say here in Delaware, it's just facility fit and how many hotel rooms of X quality are around. And then just, always negotiating on, what the rights holders are looking for. They have usually a long list of stuff they need or want. So just making sure that between, the state office, the county tourism board, the facility itself, and then any other kind of local sponsors that are either already attached to the complex or possibly new ones that, that make sense. Whether it's a one-time deal because it's the first time the event's coming or a long-lasting partnership. So just making sure that, again, kind of like Terry said, just making a world-class experience for, the rights holders, whether it's the 12th time they're coming or the first, all the parents, all the teams, all the grandmoms, all the athletes, just making sure that they have everything they need because most people are coming from out of town. So they don't know where the best burger is. They don't know where the best shopping outlet is. So, that's where, our office and the county tourism board, we really pull our resources together to provide that because if you're coming from Indiana, you probably don't know that Delaware's tax-free. So we make sure that we blast that, as early and often as we can to those parents and players, to make sure that they're aware of all that kind of stuff.
I think one of the biggest challenges that we faced going into, COVID-19 was the fact that every year the market gets more and more competitive, more and more facilities coming online that are being tailored to the, youth and amateur sport tourism markets. You have certain states across the country that will give out facilities for zero to no rent in exchange for the tourism tax revenues that it generates back in the community. And then you get into certain parts of the country where free rent is not an option. The Northeast corridor is a little different matrix than the Southeast or the Midwest. And therefore the challenges of trying to compete against a market that didn't exist, 10, 15 years ago. When you see the, new shiny bell and whistle venue out there and you have a rights holder who's like going, I'm getting everything I need right here, but it's that whole squirrel mentality. Oh, that looks so shiny. I should probably go chase it. And trying to say, hey, you know what? Don't chase the new shiny ball. You got the ball you need right here. So I think some of the unique challenges we faced all along is just the growth and the accelerated growth that was going on in the marketplace leading into this. The question is who will remain standing when it's all over? Because some of those were just coming online in the last several years. And did they have the net capital that they needed to sustain themselves through this period of time, especially when a lot of the small businesses right now aren't getting the impact of the PPP loans and the SBA loans because those dollars ran so fast. And, they're going to run those challenges. Could they keep their doors open and keep their staff afloat to get through this effort? And it's going to create a whole new day. But it was highly competitive going in. And I imagine it's probably going to, get even more competitive with those who still remain standing when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I think similar challenges that were mentioned for us. I mean, we're looking at driving economic impact. So we partner on our sort of outreach with the Convention and Visitors Bureau in Philadelphia. And I think, one of the differentiators for us is location. So like Ryan mentioned, we also promote that we're a walkable city. There's so many options from dining to other attractions aside from your convention or meeting or draft that you're attending. So looking at kind of highlighting those as a differentiator when we're, sort of competing against other convention centers who may be 20 miles outside of a downtown is one of the things that we definitely, focused on pre-COVID is how do we get kind of the right citywides also? Because I think in the sort of convention and meeting space, there's a little bit of prestige if you can get certain types of events and conferences. So trying to focus on bringing those to town and highlighting all of the other added benefits, because I think most of these meeting planners are really focused on attendees, and attendees want to go to a city that has stuff to do, that's cool, that has a good food scene, because they're going for the convention, which is maybe 2-3 days, but then they may extend it and, bookend it with sort of vacation days. So trying to also highlight that when we're, selling meetings is the accessibility that attendees have to all of these different, sort of entertainment options as well.
We're going to shift on a next question towards post-COVID again. This question's from Eric Wellington. He said, first, thank you all for doing this. My question comes in terms of in pricing models. If we come back with an altered amount of people allowed into events, will this cause a shift in pricing models? Has this been even discussed at this point?
We're tackling that issue now, is because we realize that there's going to be events, especially on the youth and amateur side, where you're going to see, dwindling in potential numbers of participants, especially in the first year, 18 to 24 months. We're actually having the opposite conversation, which is, do we keep our prices, stagnant? Do we drop them a little bit to get people to feel, the understanding that we're having to get back at this together, and we need them to be a participant with us in order for us to showcase, our facility, to showcase what our teams can do, what our staff can do, and the like. But it's also challenging some of the venues who know that they might have to run at lesser capacity to potentially have to scale up, because they need so much revenue in order to, bring the custodial staff on, to bring the concession, staff. So in order to employ people, it obviously, we all know, takes money. And in an effort to do that, does that play that economy of scale? It potentially could. But I also know that there are people out there who are really considerate of what's going on in the market, who are trying to make sure they either hold steady, or they even look at maybe discounting, in the first 18 months, just to get people back in the comfortability of being able to, play a game in front of some people and have fun and quality of life and a healthy, living for the younger people in our society. So a lot of conversation around the topic of where dollars are going to fall, and will the impact ultimately lie on the consumer having to pay a higher price down the road. I don't want to be a predictor, but we all know that it's going to come with time, that people are going to have to try to make up for lost time, and hopefully they don't do it right out of the gate, and they figure out a way to strategize it into a long-term growth strategy.
From a hotel perspective, I've already had discussions with clients as they book out years in advance on the opportunities that they may see, just because of simple supply and demand with hotels. If less folks are traveling and there's the same amount of hotel rooms available, I think you'll see more competitive rates. I think you'll see more competitive concessions from hotels, and I think it's a point of opportunity as we move forward into the next year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years of as the supply is the same and the demand kind of isn't to where it is or where it was previous to COVID, that there actually is the ability for some opportunity to see lower rates, make it more advantageous to attend the events, and also to see some benefit to the event organizer.
I think you can look at it as maybe a time to, what Andy said earlier, build customer relationships. So maybe you had them in your venue and it didn't go as well as you'd hoped, but maybe you're going to bonus them something or comp them something. You've seen it with some of the larger companies. I know USAA, they gave me 20% back on my auto insurance. State Farm, I think, gave back premiums to their customers for a month. So looking at sort of those little, if possible, obviously everyone's finances are tight at this point, but so are our customers. And so if we can bonus something that doesn't, cost us a ton, or if it's something that maybe we can make it easier for the customer to do, whereas in past there were maybe more hurdles, trying to, again, look at ways to basically tell the customer in whatever way, based on your venue or your organization, that we appreciate you, we value you, and how we can show you that is by doing X, Y, Z is something I think we're all also looking at, sort of to bring people back and make them feel like, it's not just about the money, because a lot of companies are obviously going through cuts and furloughs and things like that. So that we're all sort of sharing in the pain, but we want to move forward together.
And I'll just add one more thing in terms of, bonusing and creating a better, connection or relationship, little things, like athletes popping into Zoom sessions like Peyton Manning popped into a Tennessee class. You know, can a team or a company, you know, offer, you know, those type of experiences where you're still social distancing, but you get the, you know, chance of a lifetime to talk to whomever, or maybe you get, you know, maybe Mark Cuban sponsors a, you know, one-on-one, quote unquote, you know, session with you and, you know, X amount more people for a free session, you know, stuff like that you normally wouldn't get. But, you know, again, the reopening, no one knows what's going to happen. So, you know, those outside the box kind of ideas to provide that little extra touch that, you know, down the road, people are always going to remember that, and that you were there for them and not just asking for money, but providing something unique for them.
Awesome. We have time for one more question. For those of us that have been furloughed due to COVID-19, do you see the potential job prospects in the sports, tourism, and travel industry when things get back to the new normal? If we're a job seeker, what would you do?
That's a great question. You know, right now, I mean, with so many employers dealing with their current and their existing staff, and I think their first, you know, reaction is going to be reach out to people who are part of their programs. Hopefully, can create a welcome back program. I do, however, you know, see the positive, you know, at the end of the tunnel is that when we get back into whatever the new norm is defined, facilities are going to have to ask for and demand for people to come back. And therefore, in order to have that happen, you're going to have to do seasonal employment. You're going to have to bring, you know, those people back. So my suggestion is, you know, make sure that you stay relevant, being a part of things like what Neumann University is offering and getting up to speed on some of the new things that are happening, you know, in the marketplace. Get your resume and get your materials out there, and stay active on things like LinkedIn and other, you know, social sites of that nature, so that it, you know, ensure that you're front of mind when that employer is ready to be and equipped to be able to hire. I mean, I wish everybody who is being negatively impacted by this experience, it gets the first right of refusal. I mean, not the first right of refusal to go back into the organization in which they came from, and or is given the first opportunity to fill what might become a new vacancy. Now, it might require you to hone a new skill, because, you know, with, you know, technology and the role of it in today's world, you know, having to be very versed in social media, being very versed in, you know, graphic design and website technology, you might have to take on a new skill, and getting certifications and other things while you have this period of time might be, you know, the appropriate time to do that. But as the optimist I am, I think, you know, the opportunities are going to be there. It's just going to take time, and what the definition of that time is, I don't have the crystal ball, but I do think there's going to be opportunities when the time comes.
Kind of just piggybacking real quick, I think Harvard is offering free courses online. So I think that's a tremendous opportunity. And I think we can all kind of learn something, a skill, or get better at something through YouTube. You know, there's a billion great free videos on anything you want to learn. Again, kind of being the optimist, you know, I think we've all been at periods of time in our life where we're kind of trying to learn something new, and, you know, just take this time where, you know, it's a great opportunity. There's a lot of great resources that are available to people for all kinds of reasons. Definitely just, you know, don't sit on the couch all day and go after, learn something new.
Yeah, I would just say invest in yourself. To piggyback what Ryan and Terry said, and probably Ashley will say, you invest in yourself. I've spent a lot of time on LinkedIn, absorbing what other folks in the industry are doing, and you know, I think as we exit this, I think it's going to be really, really important to be well versed in what just transpired. So to be able to have pointed discussions about what transpired with COVID in the industry over the last few months, and be able to talk thoroughly about it, and be able to move forward with some level of knowledge, it makes you, I think, exponentially more marketable.
Yeah, I agree. Ditto to everything they said.
All right, we just about ran out of time. I would like to thank Dr. Lanzillo for helping us set this whole thing up. I would also like to give a big thank you to our panelists, Ryan, Ashley, Andy, and Terry. You guys really helped out a lot. You guys gave some big insight. So Ryan, I apologize if you guys, if we didn't get to your guys' questions. Ryan would like to answer them after this session. So I just wanted to let you guys know that. You can join us in our post-game Zoom room. The link is right there on the left. Thank you guys, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. We have 11 more panels over the next 2 days, so I hope you guys can join them too. All right, thank you guys, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe.